RoboCop the game, Deus Ex Human Revolution is everything the Mass Effect series has failed to be since the release of Mass Effect 2. I'd be picking out a nice step stool to hang myself from if I were BioWare, because this game does absolutely everything BioWare's flagship sci-fi third-person shooter does, except it does it about 20 times more convincingly, and without once selling the franchise out to placate the same troglodytic fuckwits with gamer tags like X Master Chief 420X and Sephiroth Juggalo 6969. Do you have any idea how refreshing it is to play a hybrid RPG that has an honest-to-God fucking inventory for once? The last time I played a new release that had an inventory screen, Blink-182 was relevant, and terrorists were just people in ski masks that Steven Seagal regularly karate-chopped in the throat at the local Cineplex. Deus Ex 3 is the kind of game that doesn't get made anymore, the kind that forces you to ponder every permutation of every move before you execute it, and that mercilessly punishes you if you fail. It's one of those, what do you call them? Alright, video games. Deus Ex Human Revolution's attribute du jour is undoubtedly choice, and yet Eidos Montreal can often appear reticent to feature this advantage, as demonstrated by the Call of Duty-style on-rails opening sequence and brief yet frequent butt-fuckingly ugly pre-rendered cutscenes. The original Deus Ex was refreshing precisely because it was so uncharacteristically interactive during a time when flashy Kojima cinematics had taken center stage, followed immediately by graphics, with gameplay sucking on hind teat at a distant third or fourth.
Games just don't look any better than this.
In short, Eidos Montreal, you don't need to be like Half-Life or Metal Gear Solid, because your pedigree is in fact better than Half-Life or Metal Gear Solid. Fortunately, once the meat of the game starts, they give way to genuine choice and interaction, but that won't stop me from humbly requesting that you cut it the fuck out! Luckily, this less than desirable addition is tempered by the copious detail and care that's gone into crafting every last element of this superb RPG experience. The level of detail in the incredibly immersive environments borders on the gratuitous, but further delineates the fact that where Deus Ex 3 is concerned, Eidos Montreal doesn't do anything in half measures. For example, in the original Deus Ex, when you need to hack a computer, you just push the hack button and you wait for a meter to go down. Eidos Montreal's instead fashioned a deeply nuanced, strategic, and balanced puzzle minigame where the player not only has to concern themselves with the computer's rapidly encroaching firewall software, but because it's in real time, you have to be equally concerned with the fucking clairvoyant AI stumbling upon the player while he's balls deep into some equestrian porn. I can honestly say that it's the greatest hacking minigame I've ever played. And hey, if they shoehorn some melodramatic anime cutscenes in between them and place tits at regular intervals, they could pitch it to Atlas as their latest genre-smashing hentai puzzle dating sim.
I'd buy that for $1.
Perhaps my only substantive grievance as a fan of the stealth genre comes from the game's approach to stealth takedowns. When Eidos Montreal divulged that the game would feature needlessly garish, contextual third-person kills replete with accompanying Matrix cinematography, I gotta be honest, I nearly took out a hit on Project Lee's Jean-François Dugas.
Sacre bleu!
But they do actually grow on you after a while. My issue is with the fact that executing even a simple rear choke or a garrote consumes bioelectric energy. Energy which then must be replenished by consuming not energy cells, not Duracell fucking batteries, but food. Sounds like a minor inconvenience, right? After all, in the first two Deus Ex games, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a 3-course fucking meal. Half my goddamn inventory was taken up by potato chips and shit, but apparently about 15 years from now, restaurants will spontaneously stop selling food. And it's Adam Jensen's only knowledge of refrigerator operation involves throwing one across the goddamn room, that leaves his stomach more empty than Obama's campaign promises. Which in turn means you run around for most of the game with just one lowly energy cell, desperately foraging for food like a wild boar or Gabe Newell. Look, the point is that if food has suddenly gone from pointless clutter to arguably the most valuable resource in the entire game, then it might have been a good idea to have the noodle bars in Hangsha sell actual noodles. And for something called a stealth kill, it certainly isn't even marginally stealthy. Performing opera on a construction site located in a wind tunnel is quieter than performing a stealth kill in this game, and frankly, I can't blame the bad guys for screaming like Rob Halford, considering the fact that instead of silently drawing a knife across their throat like a normal person, he slams his fucking arm swords into their pancreas, then all but does river dance in their nutsack. Seek therapy, Adam Jensen, because your anger issues have anger issues. And speaking of a pain in the nuts, how about those boss fights, huh? Sure, they may be needlessly cryptic and difficult, but hey, at least they add absolutely nothing to the experience. Metal Gear Solid is a bad game, Eidos. You're better than that, no matter what Square tells you after stealing from your bed late at night and whispering, "It was all a dream." Those in the mainstream gaming press, such as the perpetually oblivious GameFailers.com, are predictably full of shit when they contend that Deus Ex 3's AI is dumber than the box of rocks Jeff Keighley ingested as a child. If anything, the inverse of that statement is true. The AI in Human Revolution is fucking precognitive and borderline telepathic. You stealth kill a guard in Pennsylvania, every guard from Naples to Saskatchewan will know not only your location on the map, but your favorite color, your school schedule, and the name of the uncle that touched you inappropriately at summer camp. One time I accidentally knocked a fire extinguisher off the wall. The place went to red alert so fast there was actually a guard wedged all the way inside my duodenum before I could even say, "I never asked for this." If you're going to criticize the AI, then at least criticize it for something legitimate, because these guards, unlike Game Failers' journalistic credentials, are no fucking joke. Deus Ex Human Revolution's story draws its water from the same well as some of the finest science fiction films and comics ever created. It's to be expected that Blade Runner is one of the main inspirations for a futuristic dystopian video game about cloning and biotechnology, and not just merely because Blade Runner is ripped off with a frequency rivaled only by Paris Hilton's panties. Appropriately, the game's approach to storytelling also owes something to the Westwood Blade Runner video game from 1997, with its multiple endings, focus on player choice, and predilection for forensics. But the main inspiration for this game's story is undoubtedly the 1987 classic known as RoboCop. Main character who's also a police officer gets forcibly turned into ground beef in the opening scene? Check. Main character turns into a cyborg? Checkaroo. Main character's boss doesn't need to remove all his limbs but decides to anyways? Pavel Chekhov. Set in Detroit? Also a check. I could go on for days, but this isn't actually a slam against the game at all because RoboCop is a fucking fantastic movie, which is fortunate because the same can't be said of the majority of this game's cutscenes. I'm astounded by Eidos Montreal's choice to depict vital story moments with pre-rendered cutscenes that have less graphical fidelity than the actual in-game engine. With the notable exception of the opening and closing cinematics, these tiresome talkies are uglier than Atlus's fan base. Just turn those cutscenes into gameplay, for Christ's sake. It's what the first two games would have done, and it would have been better from an eye candy standpoint as well. It's a minor encumbrance on what is an otherwise spectacular offering, but it's also prominent and superfluous. Even weighed against the negligible number of contentious design choices, and I can legitimately count them on just one hand, this was the single greatest video game I have played in almost a decade. And those familiar with my show are already well aware that isn't an accolade I hand out in magnanimous quantities. It's been so preposterously long since I actually sat back during play and processed just how much I was enjoying the game I was playing. I didn't get that feeling even with above-average titles such as the original Mass Effect, or Dragon Age, or Assassin's Creed, or any other game released this generation, if I'm being perfectly honest. I absolutely got that feeling during Deus Ex Human Revolution, and as much as I enjoy Deus Ex, as my fellow Rageaholics already know, I have a platonic love affair with the Thief series. If Eidos Montreal displays the same amount of indefatigable dedication and willingness to fly in the face of the modern streamlined brown study that they've now demonstrated with the release of the third Deus Ex title, then my fellow tappers are in for one of the greatest stealth games ever released. As it stands, Deus Ex Human Revolution lives up to that title and many more with considerable ease. I'm Razor Fist God. Fucking speed.
Excuse me, Robo, any special message for all the kids watching at home?
I never asked for this.